All right, NASA is exploring ways to keep the International Space Station in orbit as Russia lashes out and threatens to pull its support because of U.S. and EU sanctions. Joining me now, Homer Hickam, author and former NASA engineer who negotiated with Moscow to establish the International Space Station. Good morning to you, sir. You know, this is a very unique element of this ongoing crisis, but Russia did threaten to pull support from the International Space Station. They also talked about it possibly falling out of orbit and onto the United States or a European country. How concerned are you of that happening?
Well, Carly, right now I'm not concerned at all. We just had one of our Cygnus spacecraft visit the space station, and it gave it a little bit boost into a higher altitude. So we are probably safe for the next 3 months. But after that, it could become critical. We don't have another Cygnus right now available for a boost. So really the Russians have that responsibility to keep the space station at a safe altitude. So things will get interesting after that.
Okay, so what I'm hearing you say is that things are okay right now, but this could be a big problem down the road?
Yeah, a very big problem. I mean, really, where we are right now is that Russia controls many components within the space station. They have a data management system, for instance, that's used quite heavily that we use. And again, but the primary responsibility that they've had is to keep the station up at a safe orbit. Now, we could replace them. We'd have to have a quick program to either build another Cygnus or probably modify a Dragon for SpaceX and come up there and boost the space station back up. But in order to do that, we would essentially have to take over the station, and the Russians would have to agree to leave in an orderly fashion and turn the lights out in their part of the station as they went. In other words, it's technically feasible for us to take over the space station without the Russians. Politically, probably not.
Yeah.
Most likely, they would. There's no downside for them right now to stay aboard the station, to take care of the station. They get a lot of photo ops, a lot of positive publicity working with American astronauts. So, unfortunately, right now we're in a partnership, a marriage, if you will, and we need to have a divorce.
You know, you know what, Homer, I was just about to ask you about that because, you know, we do have this peaceful space partnership between the United States and Russia. And do you think that is something that can continue? I mean, you look at the atrocities that are unfolding in Ukraine right now, and does it seem appropriate to, when it comes to space, pretend like everything's okay?
No, it absolutely is not appropriate. It's going to be a bitter pill, unfortunately, for NASA to swallow, but we are going to have to take steps, I believe, to draw away from this partnership. And by the way, it's not just us. There are a dozen other nations involved, principally the Canadians, the Europeans, and the Japanese. So in order for us to get a divorce, if you will, from the Russians, I think the vice president who heads up the National Space Council will have to call for a meeting of the partners of the space station, except for the Russians. We all agree for an approach, and I think what that approach will be, sadly and unfortunately, is that we will need to decommission the space station probably within 2 years. So it'll take 2 years really to properly decommission it. But during that time, we'll have to work with the Russians, but it should be very businesslike. No smiling cosmonauts and astronauts shaking hands and playing with their food for photo ops or anything like that. Our marriage essentially is over.
That would be a major news event.
Sell the house
if that happens. Really quickly,
and the furniture.
I just want to ask you one more question because we're running out of time, but curious about this. The U.S. did impose sanctions that will affect Russia's space program. How detrimental are those sanctions to their space program? Because this is a huge point of pride for their country.
Yeah, well, the sanctions aren't as bad as what they're doing to themselves. Dmitry Rokochin, who's the head of the Russian space agency, has been doing a number of things, what my mom used to call cutting off your nose to spite your face. Right now, he has a UK satellite system over there. He says he's not going to launch unless they can give him all kinds of guarantees that he can't do. And he's also shut down operations down in French Guiana. So basically, he's killing his commercial space program, and so our sanctions are not. I think the Russian space program, commercial space program, is numbered because of the bellicose nature of their chief, Rakotin.
Very interesting perspective. What an interesting conversation. Homer, thank you so much for joining us this morning, and be sure to read Homer's latest memoir, Don't Blow Yourself Up. Thank you so much for joining us. We so appreciate it.
Thank you, Carly.
All right.
Always strong advice. Always strong. And that's a very interesting perspective. From the International Space Station to cyberspace, Putin unleashing cyber warfare.